It's important to also look at people's physical health as well. By using the years 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020, and 2022, we can see that the obesity rate over time is 27.7, 28.9, 29.6, 30.9, 31.9, 33.3% of the United States population. But there has to be an explanation on why more and more people are becoming obese. And there is an explanation. The culprits would be physical exercise and food prices. Let's start off with food prices. According to visualcapitalist.com, fast food prices have gone up about 63% since 2014. That sounds ridiculous already. But with data I pulled from tradingeconomics.com, I found that prices for healthy food have gone up 76.3, 45.6, 25.7, 27.1, 63.7, and 166.3% between 2012 and 2022. That means that between 2014 and 2022, the total inflation for healthy food is 328.4%. With this data, we can see that prices for healthy food have been increasing almost 5 times quicker than fast food prices. Overall, food is harder to get every year, but unhealthy food is the more affordable choice compared to healthy food. With unhealthy food being the more affordable choice, it makes complete sense why Americans are becoming more and more obese. The second thing I want to focus on is physical exercise. According to Statistica, Americans only spend about 7.6% of their day outside. That's only an hour and a half per day. Not only does spending time outdoors help with stress, but it also lowers your chance of doing any hard physical activities during the day. Between 2012 and 2022, only 19.3, 19.1, 20.9, 19.1, 22.6, and 20.1% of Americans exercise daily. That means that 79.9% of Americans do not exercise daily. This means that if a supermajority of Americans rarely spend time outside and work out daily, while at the same time being forced to ditch healthy food for more affordable unhealthy counterparts, Americans are destined to live with an unhealthy lifestyle for the foreseeable future. The only way to counteract this would be by somehow creating more farmland in the United States to produce more healthy food. The other would be to have people find more time out of their day where they can spend working out. The final thing we need to look at is people's actual mental health. 36.2% of people between the ages of 18 through 25 say they have some sort of mental illness. For 26 through 49-year-olds, it's 29.4%, and 50 plus is 13.9%. With this data, we can see that younger people have a higher chance of developing a mental illness. But why is that? It's because anxiety rates are the highest they have been since 2020. In 2021, anxiety rates were 26.5%, but today they are 29.5%. But again, we have to ask why a third of all Americans have anxiety. The simple answer would be to replay this episode, but I found some interesting data on Statistica. The top 5 things people worry about are inflation, poverty, crime, unemployment, and political corruption. So let's look into these subjects and see if they are really issues that should be worried about. Let's start off with inflation. For this, I'm going to be comparing the GDP per capita. In 1950, the GDP per capita was $1,900. Today, it is $76,300. That is a total growth of 3,700%. But the reality sets in when you put inflation into play. If we use today's dollars, the GDP per capita in 1950 would not be 1,900, but actually 23,900. That means the actual growth in value between 1950 and today would be 218%. That's an over 3,500% difference. You can even see how much this has affected the past 3 years. In 2020, the GDP per capita was 63,500. That would be an increase of over 20%. but when inflated, that amount goes up to $71,800, and the actual growth is only a little over 6%. That means that your income on average is worth 14% less than what it actually looks like. Now let's look at poverty. Between 1990 and today, poverty rates have dropped over 17%. This means long term that poverty is slowly being dealt with and isn't something you should worry about too much. Next, let's look at crime rates. Between 1990 and today, crime rates have dropped over 27%, but crime rates are at their highest since 1990. In 2000, crime rates were 5.52, but are now 6.81 today. I completely understand why crime should be a concern. What we should start doing is electing tough-on-crime politicians to try to ease this concern, which is something we haven't been doing lately. Between 2005 and today, unemployment has dropped by over 24% and is at its lowest point yet. One thing I do want to say though is that I have not been recording data for 2024 due to the year not being over yet, but over the past year unemployment rates have been going up. But personally, I think this is just a ripple effect from the COVID economy and will be resolved over the next couple of years. The final subject is political corruption. Between 2000 and today, the United States score on corruption has gone down from 78 points to 69 points, 100 meaning no corruption and 0 meaning very corrupt. This means over the past 20 years, the government has become 11% more corrupt. The only thing I can say is do more research into a person before you vote for them. I say this because only 30% of Americans actually pay attention to the news. This means about 70% of people aren't well informed on important subjects when they go to vote. The overall conclusion of this section is this: before you vote, do a lot of research into the people who are running for election, because if you vote for a bad politician, you don't really have a lot of room to complain about their bad policy. The cost of living within the United States is at its highest point ever. It is almost impossible to survive living on your own, and not much easier living with someone else. People can't get into relationships because they refuse to date anyone who thinks differently than they do. People can't afford to buy assets because they cost too much. The only affordable assets are in the form of gambling. The physical health of Americans are at an all-time low. And lastly, the mental health crisis in the United States is at an alarming state. With this, we can see that a timeline can be constructed to better the mental health of the United States. First, the cost of living needs to be brought down by battling inflation while also breaking up monopolies and helping people get paid for what their actual productivity is, as it's almost impossible to bring down asset prices without creating an economic crash. Bringing up the amount of income people can earn will make the purchase of assets a lot easier. With people being happier with their income, they would less likely defect to radical political ideologies. This would make it to where people would get along a lot better, which would in turn prop up birth rates. People would also be able to afford healthier lifestyles, bettering not just one's mental health, but their physical health as well. This would also make dating a lot easier. In the end, with these processes taking place, the mental health of Americans would return to a healthy level. I want to thank you for watching this episode. If you think I got something wrong, let me know in the comments. If you want me to look into a specific topic, also let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you enjoy this kind of long form content. Subscribe to my Clips channel if you prefer to watch shorter segmented forms of this podcast. And finally, subscribe to my Shorts channel if you only want to hear my most informative quotes. Link to all my channels are in the description. Link to all my sources are also in the description. The next podcast will be about the book Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, I'll see you next time.